Morning, all. All right, so we are going to look at the 1980-81 season as this series rolls along. As you can see, the divisions stay the same. So LA and Montreal are still in the same division, but it doesn't matter because everybody plays everybody else 4 times. And the seedings in the playoffs are 1 versus 16, 2 versus 15. So who cares who wins the division, right? So the Norris is won by Montreal. They finished with 103 points, 45, 22, and 13 record, 332 goals scored, 232 goals against. They are captained by Serge Savard. The LA Kings, 43, 24, and 13 record, 99 points, 330 goals scored, 290 goals against. And Mike Murphy is their captain at this point. The Pittsburgh Penguins, 30, 37, and 13, 302 goals scored, 345 goals against, 73 points. Orest Kondrachuk is their captain at this point. Pittsburgh starting to have some financial difficulties at this stage. The Hartford Whalers, 21, 41, and 18 record, 60 points. So Gordie Howe retired after the 79-80 season, and Hartford just kind of falls apart. 292 goals scored, 372 goals against. Both Rick Lee and Mike Rogers were captains of the Hartford Whalers that season. The Detroit Red Wings at the bottom, 19, 43, and 18 record for 56 points. 252 goals scored, 339 goals against. They had two captains that year. Reed Larson, player I liked quite a bit, and Errol Thompson. The Adams division is won by the Buffalo Sabres. They finished 39, 20, and 21. They're captained by Danny Gare. 99 points for them, 327 goals scored, 250 goals against. The Boston Bruins finished with 87 points, a record of 37, 30, and 13, 316 goals scored, 272 goals against. They're captained by Wayne Cashman. The Minnesota North Stars finished 35, 28, and 17, so that's 87 points as well. 291 goals scored, 263 goals against. Their captain, Paul Schmier. The Quebec Nordiques finished 30, 32, and 18, so 78 points, much better than the first season. 314 goals scored, 318 goals against. Mark Tardif is their captain. The Toronto Maple Leafs are at the bottom, alongside Detroit there, a record of 28, 37, and 15, 71 points. 322 goals scored, 367 goals against. They are captained by Daryl Sittler. Not for much longer. Daryl Sittler's going to have an ugly divorce with the Toronto Maple Leafs. It's how Lanny McDonald ended up in Colorado, because Sittler wouldn't agree to be traded, so they traded his buddy Lanny McDonald, because what are the Toronto Maple Leafs management at that point other than petty? The Patrick division is won by the New York Islanders, 110 points, record of 48, 18, and 14, so excellent record. 355 goals scored, 260 goals against, and Denny Potvin is their captain. The Philadelphia Flyers finished 41, 24, and 15, 97 points. 313 goals scored, 249 goals against. They are captained by Mel Bridgman. The Calgary Flames, 39, 27, and 14 record, 92 points, 329 goals scored, 298 goals against, and Brad Marsh is the captain of the now Calgary Flames. So Atlanta moves to Calgary. We'll talk about that in a bit. The New York Rangers, 30, 36, and 14 record, so 74 points, 312 goals scored, 317 goals against. They're captained by Barry Beck and Dave Maloney. The Washington Capitals, 26, 36, and 18 record, 70 points, 286 goals scored, 317 goals against, and Ryan Walter, one of my favorite people who has ever been around the hockey world. Ryan Walter, great guy. The Smythe division is won by the surprisingly excellent St. Louis Blues, 45, 18, and 17 record, 107 points, 352 goals scored, 281 goals against, and Brian Sutter is their captain at this time. The Chicago Blackhawks finished 31, 33, and 16, 78 points, 304 goals scored, 315 goals against. Terry Ruskowski is their captain at this point. The Vancouver Canucks finished 28, 32, and 20. They do not have a winning record in any season until we hit the 90s. 76 points, a record, 289 goals scored, 301 goals against. They are captained by Kevin McCarthy. The Edmonton Oilers finished 29, 35, and 16, 74 points, 328 goals scored, 327 goals against. Lee Fogelin and Blair McDonald both had time as the captain of the Edmonton Oilers that season. McDonald would get traded to Vancouver. Colorado finishes 22, 45, and 13 with Lanny McDonald as their captain, so 57 points, 258 goals scored, 344 goals against. It is a tough time for the Rockies. They won't be there much longer. The Winnipeg Jets have a nightmare season. They finished 9-57-14, 32 points, 246 goals scored, 400 goals against, and they're captained by Morris Lukowicz. So this is a season where the scoring is through the roof. As you can see, lots of goals being scored. Gretzky sets a record for assists and points in a season, and he has the first of 7 straight Art Ross trophies. There were seasons where just on assists alone, he would have won the Art Ross. So ridiculous numbers being put up by 99. The Quebec Nordiques, they have a stroke of genius in getting Peter and Anton Stastny once they escaped Czechoslovakia. So they defected. Marion would defect a year later. Marion not as successful at the NHL level as Peter and Anton, but still, the Stastny brothers a really good story and part of the reason why the Quebec Nordiques do not stay at the bottom in that division. October 6th of 1980, the Islanders trade Richard Brodeur to the Vancouver Canucks. I believe it's just for a pick or just not much of anything, really. The Islanders have goaltending depth, and Brodeur is kind of seen as extra, so the Canucks pick him up, and he ends up being pretty darn good for them. December 18th of 1980, the Hawks trade Mike O'Connell to the Bruins for Al Secord. I'm going to go out on a limb and say Chicago wins that trade. February 22nd of 1981, Anton and Peter Stastny both have 8 points, which is a rookie record in a game, in an 11-7 win against the Washington Capitals, who, again, are still at the bottom. March 11th, 1981, Kings defenseman Larry Murphy sets a defenseman rookie points record with 66. He ends up with 76 by the end of the season, so he sets a really high bar there. May 17th of 1981, Dino Ciccarelli gets his 21st playoff point, and that is a rookie record. So Dino Ciccarelli, really strong run that first season in the 81 playoffs. November 2nd of 1980, the Philadelphia Flyers get their 500th win as a franchise, which is made more impressive when you realize none of the other expansion teams have 400 franchise wins to this point. The Flyers well and above everybody who came into the league when they did in 67 and beyond. February 18th of 1981, Gretzky's 5th hat trick before his 21st birthday sets a new NHL record. Remember, he had a year in the WHA before that, so it could have been 7 or 8 if he'd been able to play in the NHL as a 17-year-old. March 22nd of 1981, Jim Rutherford becomes the first goaltender to play for 3 teams in one season. He plays in Detroit, then Toronto, and then LA for the Kings. So the president of the Vancouver Canucks was once an NHL goaltender who traded around the league a little bit. The Flames moved to Calgary. They played out of the Stampede Corral. So if you're a Flames fan, there's a blast from the past. They had a capacity in that building of 7,475 and stayed there until the Saddle Dome was finished. This is the last season of 1 versus 16, 2 versus 15 in the playoff format. Owners don't like it. Managers don't like it. The NHL doesn't like it. You're not creating rivalries. You're seeing ridiculous travel schedules. So the NHL goes to a divisional series matchup after this season is done. Gretzky had 5 assists in Game 1 of the series against the Montreal Canadiens to set a playoff record. That was part of what got me into hockey. I'll talk about it. And in the sweep of the Boston Bruins in the preliminary round, Minnesota won their first ever game at Boston. In fact, they won 2, and then they went home and won Game 3. So Minnesota, since coming into the league in 1967, had never won a game at Boston Garden. The Art Ross Trophy goes to Wayne Gretzky of the Edmonton Oilers. Of course, the Masterton goes to Blair Dunlop of the St. Louis Blues. The Calder goes to Peter Stastny of the Quebec Nordiques. The Conn Smythe goes to Butch Goring of the New York Islanders. The Selke goes to Bob Gainey of the Montreal Canadiens because it's his trophy. Nobody else is allowed to have it. Remember, to this point, Gainey's the only person who's won it. The Hart Trophy goes to Wayne Gretzky of the Oilers. The Jack Adams goes to Red Berenson of the St. Louis Blues. The Norris Trophy goes to Randy Carlyle in Pittsburgh. The Lady Byng goes to Rick Kehoe of Pittsburgh, and that's the thing. Pittsburgh, not a great team, but Carlyle was great, and I liked Rick Kehoe. And then Lemieux arrives, and everybody forgets who Rick Kehoe is. The Lester Pearson goes to Mike Liut of the St. Louis Blues, who had himself a season. The Vezina is split three ways. Heron, Larocque, and Sevigny. And Larocque would get traded to Toronto, and Montreal would do their best to make sure that Larocque was sharing that trophy three ways because of the fallout he had with the team. In fact, the NHL, in seeing that how Montreal manipulated the number of games that goaltenders got into, so they qualified for the Vezina, which I believe is 25 games, decided to change how the award was given out at all, and we went to a voting system for the Vezina Trophy the following season. So Montreal wrecked it. There is a video on this channel about it, but it was their fight with Bunny Larocque that did it. And so the NHL said that's enough. Your all-stars in the league that year, Wayne Gretzky's your first-line center. Marcel Dion, second line for the Kings, of course. The right wing, Mike Bossy for the Islanders, is first-team all-star. And Dave Taylor of the Kings is second team. On the left side, Charlie Simmer is your first-team all-star from L.A., and Bill Barber of the Flyers is second-team all-star. So the Triple Crown line is in full effect in LA at this point. You've got Taylor, Simmer, and Dion. On the defense, Denny Potvin of the New York Islanders, Randy Carlyle of the Pittsburgh Penguins, your first-team All-Stars. Larry Robinson of the Montreal Canadiens and Ray Bourque of the Boston Bruins, the second-team All-Stars. And in net, Mike Liut of the St. Louis Blues is first team. And Mario Lessard of the LA Kings is second-team All-Star. So, looking at scoring in the NHL that year, Wayne Gretzky leads the way. 80 games, 55 goals, 109 assists, and 164 points. So, he shatters the scoring records of assists and points, and after this season, he targets goals. Marcel Dion of the Kings, 80 games, 58 goals, 77 assists, 135 points. Kent Nilsson in Calgary, 80 games, 49 goals, 82 assists, 131 points. Mike Bossy for the Islanders, 79 games, 68 goals, 51 assists, 119 points. Dave Taylor in LA, 72 games, 47 goals, 65 assists for 112 points. Peter Stastny in Quebec, 77 games, 39 goals, 70 assists for 109 points. Charlie Simmer in LA, 65 games, 56 goals, 49 assists, 105 points. So that's the second time we've had Charlie Simmer on the board for a top scorer, when he got less than 70 games played in that season. Mike Rogers in Hartford now, of course, 80 games, 40 goals, 65 assists, 105 points. Bernie Federko in St. Louis, 78 games, 31 goals, 73 assists, 104 points. So a lot of 100-point scorers, and I felt like I should get as many of them as I can on the board, but there's still others that got to 100 points. Mario Lessard led the NHL in wins that year for LA. I like the guy. 35, 18, and 11 record, 3.26 goals against, and 2 shutouts. Mike Liut in St. Louis, 33, 14, and 13 record, 3.35 goals against, and 1 shutout. In fact, I thought about doing a Lessard video once, and then I was sad. His career wasn't that long, and I didn't feel like there was enough there for a video. Tony Esposito in Chicago, 29, 23, and 14 record, 3.76 goals against, no shutouts. Shutouts are kind of gone at this point in the NHL. Greg Millen in Pittsburgh, 25, 27, and 10 record, 4.17 goals against, no shutouts. Rogie Vachon in LA, 25, 19, and 6, 3.34 goals against, and 1 shutout. So, save percentages, shutouts are really, really down during this era, but a lot of excitement in the playoffs. Starts with Minnesota knocking off Boston 3 straight games. So that gets the Minnesota North Stars some attention because, I mean, it's Boston, right? Calgary beats Chicago 3-0. So Chicago's back on a losing streak in the playoffs. Philadelphia beats Quebec 3-2. So that series is close. Buffalo beats Vancouver 3 straight games. Yep, I watched that whole series. People wonder why I cheered for more than one team, but I mean, the team I rooted for didn't even have a win in the playoffs. I wanted to watch the rest of the playoffs. So the Rangers beat LA 3-1. Edmonton beats Montreal 3 straight. That was a huge upset. Even though the Montreal Canadiens were no longer considered, as good as they were during their dynasty, when Edmonton knocked off Montreal 3 straight, that sent shockwaves. And I remember Canadian media talking about it, like during the regular newscast, like it was a big deal that Montreal had lost. And then that got the hype for Gretzky a little bit higher. St. Louis beats Pittsburgh 3-2. And the New York Islanders beat Toronto 3 straight games. So we get to the quarterfinals, and this is where things get fun. Calgary, Philadelphia, that series going to 7 games. Calgary winning it. I loved that series. Minnesota beating Buffalo in 5. Well, being in Canada and the fact that we didn't have like all the nationwide deals for watching hockey, like I couldn't watch out of market. I couldn't watch a lot of the American games. But I kept track because keep in mind, Buffalo knocked out Vancouver. So I was very happy to see Minnesota knock out Buffalo because I was a little kid. New York Rangers beat St. Louis in 6. And the New York Islanders knock off Edmonton in 6. So not only did the Oilers knock off Montreal, but they didn't go to the side against the New York Islanders easily. And the Islanders are a machine at this point. So we go to the semifinal, we get Minnesota Calgary, and this series was great. Whoever won this series, I was definitely going to be cheering for in the playoffs or in the Stanley Cup final. Minnesota wins in Calgary in the first game 4-1. Calgary wins at home 3-2 in game 2. Minnesota then wins 6-4 and 7-4 to go up 3 games to 1. Calgary wins 3-1 to extend the series, but then Minnesota wins at home. This time 5-3. They win the series in 6 games and move on to the Stanley Cup final. The Islanders play the Rangers. Again, this is a rivalry that's heated, but it's pretty one-sided in this series. 5-2 and 7-3 wins for the Islanders in the first 2 games. The Islanders then go into New York and win 5-1 and 5-2. So I gave the Rangers a win there. I don't know why, but I did. So yeah, that didn't happen. In the Stanley Cup final, Minnesota loses to the Islanders 6-3 in both games 1 and 2. At home, they lose against the Islanders in game 3, 7-5. So this series was not close. Minnesota does win a game in game 4 to win 4-2 and keep themselves in the series. But the Islanders win 5-1 to win the series 4 games to 1. So Minnesota avoids a sweep, and that's about it. In that Stanley Cup final, Steve Payne, who I've done a video on and got a letter from, great guy, 5 goals, 2 assists, 7 points. He saw the video I made on him on his career, which just blew my mind. Dino Ciccarelli, 3 goals, 2 assists for him in the final. Bobby Smith had 2 goals and 3 assists, and Craig Hartsburg, 1 goal, 4 assists. The goaltending struggled because it's the 80s. Beaupre an 877 save percentage. Milosh had a rough time of it, 765 save percentage, but it is the Islanders. They could score at will, and they did. Mike Bossy had 4 goals and 4 assists in the 5-game series. Wayne Merrick, 3 goals, 5 assists for Wayne Merrick. He's one of those ones I've looked at from the Islanders dynasty too and thought about doing a career video for. Just haven't got around to that. Butch Goring, 5 goals, 2 assists for your Conn Smythe winner. Trottier, 2 goals and 5 assists for the Islanders. And Denny Potvin, 2 goals and 4 assists. Billy Smith, an 887 save percentage. He's really established himself at this point as their go-to guy, their starting goaltender. And he's on his way to the Hall of Fame at some point once his career is done. But this season is done in terms of me taking a look at it. So there you go. The 80-81 season, this is where officially I'm watching hockey and really enjoying myself. And the Minnesota North Stars become kind of my favorite team. They and the Canucks being the 2 teams I was rooting for. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe in the event you've not done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.